Luke 11:1. And it came to pass that as he was praying in a certain place, when he ceased, one of his disciples said unto him, Lord, teach us to pray.
If ever there was a people group who knew something about the practice of prayer, it was the nation of Israel. If you studied the Old Testament, the patriarchs and the prophets and the priests, they all had prayer as an ongoing part of their life, a part of their faith. However, by the time you get to the life of Christ, the days of Christ, prayer had become something God never intended it to be. It wasn't that it was non-existent. On the contrary, it was everywhere. However, it was pretentious. It was fake. It was phony in a lot of ways. You could hear prayer being made in the temple. You could hear prayer being made in the synagogues, even on the street corners when the Pharisees would pray. And in just about every home, families would pray and go through this ceremonial, ritualistic way of praying. However, when the disciples heard Christ pray, they knew it was different. There was something different about Christ praying. You think about that. God the Son praying to God the Father through God the Spirit. When the disciples heard Him, this is what they asked, Lord, teach us to do that. Teach us to pray like you pray. Christ didn't pray pretentiously, sacrilegiously, ceremonially. He prayed humbly, honestly. Christ prayed differently. And so in the praying of Christ, we ask the question, what makes it so different? I think the simple answer is that Christ prayed differently because He was different. Never a man spake like this man. And so logically, we can say never a man prayed like this man either. In the praying of Christ, we find two realities. First one being that Christ reveals the Father to all of us. That's what Christ was doing when He prayed. As a matter of fact, we would not even know the Father apart from the Son. The Son teaches us to pray this way, Our Father, which art in heaven. And so the praying Christ is a Christ that reveals the Father to us. But secondly, when Christ prays, He's also representing us before the Father. What a magnificent thought. He's revealing the Father to us when He prays, and then He represents us to the Father. He intercedes on our behalf, and in doing so, He teaches us in His life and His example what it really means to pray differently. Not religiously, not ceremonially, but Christ, the prayer maker, prays differently. Brings us to the prayer maker principle of the day.
It is possible to live within the ritualistic activities of prayer without knowing its real power. Because of Christ's high priestly work of prayer, we can and should pray differently than those who do not have access to God through His Son. Christ represents us before the Father and simultaneously reveals the Father unto us.
So how does Jesus teach us to pray differently? You know, the world prays. Unbelievers pray. You hear that talk all the time. I'm going to pray for you. Politicians and social media figureheads and pundits all say, you're in our thoughts, you're in our prayers. But the truth is, only believers can truly pray differently. We don't pray through systems. We don't pray to statues. We don't pray through ceremonies. We don't even pray to ourselves. But as believers, Christ teaches us that prayer is more than religious activity. It's us coming before Almighty God through the Son as Christ represents us before the Father and reveals the Father unto us. And so in this study, in this series, in this Prayer Maker lesson, it's our prayer that we can study the life of Christ and learn to pray as Christ prayed. Christ prayed differently.